Welcome to another episode of Health Your Way podcast, where we discuss health issues ranging from physical, mental, emotional, as well as current facts. Today's episode, we're going to be having actually a candid conversation about mental health education. My guest, Elisha Galambos, is the director and founder of EAG Innovation, who is actually an educational agency that supports families with their mental health goals through one-on-one sessions, consulting, workshops, and events. Is there anything else I'm missing in respects to your background?
So my background getting into this, I really use a lived experience, it's evidence approach. So it's basically taking down westernized psychiatry and mental health care to create a more supportive approach that is really geared to the whole family unit, however you choose to define family, whether it's your chosen family or the family you were born into.
I really like what you just said, because it just gives a little more feedback of what you offer and why you're here. Because I feel, and as we all know, and what we all should know, that mental health itself is a very taboo conversation. A lot of people don't talk about it, and with the whole situation of COVID-19, and this year, a lot of people have dealt with, some of their mental issues or even their personal lives that affected their mental issues. So I really appreciate having this conversation with you.
Thank you.
Um, with that said, I think for a lot of people in your own background and your own experience, what is mental health? How do you define it? If you can't really have a whole definition for it, per se.
Yeah. So I define mental health as something we all have. And a lot of the times, mental health is associated specifically with mental illness. I always say mental health is just like physical health. We all
Okay.
have it. We are all walking around or out there in the world, taking on our day, and our mental health gets affected. Just as, let's say, we're running 5K every single day. We're doing the same thing to our brains. We're using them, we're working with them, we're supporting others with them, and sometimes there's a drain. So, mental health is basically the state of mind in which we're in at any given moment based on all the other external factors and vulnerabilities happening within us and outside of us.
I love your definition, because I don't think people realize that, it is basically like walking. It's your mental health. Like I think I understood what mental health is, but the fact that you put it in those words, it gives a little more clarity, because everybody assumes mental health relates to some kind of grief, sorrow, or something negative, but they don't realize it's yourself being as a person at this moment. My mental health right now talking to you, and vice versa. That's what I understood based on what you just said.
Yep, and I would absolutely agree with that.
And I think one of the reasons why I also want to have this conversation is because mental health itself has become such a big focus over the past few months, even towards COVID-19. I feel like they lacked any form of education. And I think from your experience as a society, what is the importance of actually having a comprehensive mental health education taught in our educational system?
So, this is something that every school board does it differently.
Okay.
There's no set standard here in Canada, there's no set standard really anywhere in North America, in the UK, any country you can think of, there's no set standard as to how we teach mental health in schools. So some children are learning bits and pieces. They might be able to recognize what anxiety looks like, what stress looks like. They may have some insight into emotions, and there's not enough. Not every child is receiving that education. So the
Okay.
importance of having this comprehensive system within schools is it gives children insight and awareness into their own feelings. It allows them automatically to know how to support each other, how to recognize signs, how to become stronger and more resilient. One thing I'm a huge advocate for is teaching children how to become resilient on their own and have adult support. Teachers are spending so much time with our kids each day that mental health should just be one of those things that they're modeling. Modeling is a huge way for kids to learn, to grow, to copy. That's all they're about. When you see a kid dressing up as a firefighter or a police officer or playing house, that's because they want to be just like their parents when they grow up. And that's what they see in the world. So, mental health and teaching them about it gives them an outlet to understand. And although we might treat kids as less than, and a big myth is children can't have symptoms of depression or anxiety or
Really?
OCD and full diagnoses, but that they can. And it's important that they don't feel alone, they don't feel stigmatized. And by talking about it in schools, they don't have to grow up in shame or fear, especially as they come into those teenage years as well.
I like what you said when, a lot of people have the misconception that, kids can't be mentally like depressed or certain things. I guess they could be sad, but they can't have the same feelings as adults because they don't so-called have that kind of stress. It, and I think, hearing that, it's surprising because I think a lot of kids, they watch their parents or they're around everybody has different life experience. So you don't know how that's affecting because they may have not been taught the skill set or and even then, let's step back. A lot of adults don't have the skill set to deal
Yep.
with. So I'm sorry, like a lot. So I like the fact that he said, does make sense to have comprehensive education within the school system or even a standardized. Yes, and I think the reason why if you please disagree with me if you can, I find a lot of adults are lacking certain things of like common sense, but common sense to me is different than yours. But I think it's because they haven't been taught how to deal with certain situations alike. And yeah, I feel like if we did start young, we're giving them the tools to deal with society because society sucks. Like some of it's good, but just be good. Like society sucks.
Yeah,
I Go ahead, please.
I think based on what you're saying, I mean, as children, that's the point where we learn executive functioning skills. And that's part of how I think a lot of us define common sense. And I'll always joke that common sense is not that common because having extremely high levels of executive functioning skills is so rare because we learn that from our parents or guardians. Our parents or guardians learn that from whomever raised them. They've learned that from whom raised them. And then we're stuck in the cycle of generational trauma, and kids are relying on their caregivers to provide them that baseline. And if their baseline as an adult can't help them and assist them in regulating their emotions, it's going to be tougher on the kid to learn that. They actually say the next time we relearn these experiences is usually around childbearing years. So whether you choose to have a child or adopt or become an aunt or an uncle, whatever the situation is, typically that's another chance and another opportunity for growth. But again, that doesn't always happen where we begin to relearn these executive functioning ideals. And it's definitely beneficial, like you were saying, to have something standardized that all children are at least getting something, whether they're getting it at home or not.
I like what you said, and when you stated that it's an opportunity to relearn when you're dealing with if you choose to have a child or your aunt or uncle, because I don't think because kids come with their own issues and their own stress level, but so as we get let's step back for a second. As adults, like we're adults, I think I'm an adult. I may be wrong, but I think I'm an adult. So I think if would it be not fair if we're not educated if society is not providing us with education itself, at what point should we take some personal accountability to educate ourselves on mental health? Because I have to take accountability. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I think we can take accountability at any stage. I don't think it's ever too late
Okay.
to learn or to try. There's another really big myth is that we have a plateau in brain plasticity and it's impossible to learn anything. Yes, it does decrease, and there's still optimal time to learn at any given stage in life. It can be harder and it takes a little bit more of an investment, and you can start really small at any point. Because in my practice, I work with ages 12 and up, I find there a lot of the time there's teenagers who are trying to learn about their friends' anxiety, or young adults whose sibling has might got diagnosed for the first time, or older adults, their partner, or they're curious about brain health. Eventually, you're going to want to know because of something in your life. Mental health affects everyone. And it's great to begin by doing the small things like getting certified in mental health first aid, the next time you have to get emergency or CPR certification for work. Or it
Okay.
could even be picking up a book when you're at a library or scrolling through Amazon. These are great ways to just begin reading. And there are these small things that we can do, whether we're taking courses, whether we're just reading, whether we're listening to those with lived experiences. I think podcasts like these are so great, and many others that talk about stories of mental health, that feature folks with lived experiences or working in the field, because that's just an easy way that you can learn. And that priority can be something that's lifelong. Even working in the field, I'll never say I know everything about mental health. It's so broad, there's so many facets to it, and it starts with prioritizing yourself first and your own mental health, and then moving on to that of your family, your friends, and beginning to soak up information that's relevant to the world around you.
I'm speechless to a certain extent because I think it's great information. I think a lot of people need to hear it, and I don't remember ever being told that. I can honestly sit here and say I've never been educated by mental health. I can like unless I've had conversations with like physiotherapists, not physio, psychotherapists, and other people within the mental health industry, not industry, but like professions itself, right? And that's even when I've gotten that experience. At the same time, I think with my own personal experience, I've had to take a step back and realize, how what's affecting me, why am I repeating the same aspects? That's where I become more self-aware of my mental health. I
Mhm.
think I think what I heard from you was maybe one of the few things, what's like the basic knowledge that you should know about mental health. Like you said, being self-aware, or even making an effort to educate yourself. Is there more? Maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah,
Educate
I would
me.
say the biggest thing right now is to know how you can support yourself, but also know
Okay.
how you can support others in your life. The biggest thing that comes to mind for me right now, if you have a family member, a friend, or a partner living with any form of mental illness, or even just incorporating their mental health into your life generally, knowing
Okay.
how others in your life prefer to be supported, how you can support them, what resources are available in your community. I call it becoming trauma informed. And
Oh,
by
I like
becoming
that.
trauma informed is having the resources at hand, you're ready to go. It's the same thing as having a little first aid kit. So you know when you encounter mental health or mental health struggles, you're feeling prepared, you know how to take care of yourself, and you know how to take care of the other folks around you too.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so then what would you say are some of the counteractive or counterproductive things that we can do that will not help our mental health? That we assume that's the way it should be. Is that fair to ask? Does that make sense?
Can you
Yeah, I can repeat. I'm
repeat
sorry. I
the question?
apologize.
Sorry.
I guess, are there any misconceptions like within the mental health field that you believe are counterproductive in our health goals?
Ooh, yeah. So I think the biggest one, and I might have touched on this a little bit already, is thinking mental illness is mental health. Mental health is for everyone. So not taking
Okay.
any action until
Okay.
you get until you're experiencing symptoms or your partner's experiencing symptoms, child, whomever it is that matters most in your life.
Okay.
Um, that's a big myth because we can start learning about mental health and coping strategies, even things like interpersonal effectiveness, a part of mental health, or communicating well
Yes.
within ourselves. So, even things like employing strategies like journaling, yoga, meditation, all of these things are proactive measures that we can start doing for things like anxiety, for things like depression. We can build our social support network before we're in a place where we need to rely on those folks for mental health support or even support with physical health as well.
I
Um,
like that a lot. Go
yeah,
ahead, please, please, please. Go ahead, please, please.
okay. Another
If you have
thing,
more.
yeah, another one is really that's very prohibiting is folks thinking that they can only see a therapist or a support worker or social worker when something is wrong in their life. I think
Okay.
having a safe person who is unbiased to talk to at any point is important. And of course, when we are in crisis, that's obviously one of the main folks we want to see, who we want to receive support from. But having someone to speak to on a continuous basis is essential for our mental health, because our partner might tell us that everything is all right. They may tell us we're doing great. Even if we're working on a goal that is stressing us out, or we're finding small issues and cracks within our relationship, having an unbiased voice to support us throughout whatever we're going through and give us actual tips that are relevant to us on our mental health is important. I think some of the best therapists in the field are also ones that are in therapy themselves, just based on that information too.
I sit there and I'm thinking, like you, when you were mentioning certain things about the fact that, you don't have to be in a negative situation, but you can be in a positive situation, but having that one person you can talk to and they can just give you, I think a lot of people maybe will relate to that because again, it's good to have relations with someone that supports you. Sometimes you need someone that, just wants to, it's not going to just tell you all the nice things in the world. But like you just sometimes you also want to maybe vent a bit, but then they're like they give you an unbiased view, while your significant other would be like, it's okay, baby, you got this. And you're like, it's nice, but I know I don't got this. I'm tired. You just need someone to relate. And I think when you said that, I was thinking what I've been going through the past month. I'm like, yo, I needed that. I needed that. But you're right. Like even you don't realize having that person to talk to. And I'm thinking, I'm listening to what you're saying is really nice. And it would have been nice at that time for me. Like when I listened to it would have been really nice for me. With that said, I am, I feel like you have a lot to share. And if people are interested in, reaching out to you about your services, or even reach out to you for more information, what's the best source or platform to reach out to you on?
Yeah, so we are on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
If you are looking for immediate tips, Instagram's the best place to find some of those. We're always sharing anything helpful, any resources in the community, anything we're putting on is usually over there. The best way to get in touch with myself directly is sending us an email through the website. It's www.eaginnovation.com. And emails are always lovely. I'm always happy to answer any questions. It's Elisha, ELISHA, at eaginnovation.com. I'm always happy to offer one-to-one support, or even give you some insight on things that are happening within your community, other resources you can access, and of course, make referrals.
I appreciate that. I think when somebody's reaching out to you, what sets you or your company or your business apart from others within your field, if you don't mind sharing?
Definitely. So, a bit about me is I'm a peer support worker, which means I have access to a whole range of resources at my fingertips. What sets me apart is we have diverse practitioners on our team. So, for example, physiotherapists, nutritionists, other social workers and psychotherapists within the community that we directly refer out to. And you get me as your liaison. So when you're trying to manage your mental health or anything that's going on for you, peer support is your baseline, where we can try different strategies, where there is no one size fits all, and treatment can look any way that works best for you, whether that's out in the community, whether that's sitting in a Zoom room or in-person sessions. Peer support is really a journey that we allow each other to be a part of, and it's a great and supportive space. So whether it's joining a community or an event we have going on, all of our spaces are very much geared to being specific and supportive.
You sound so calming when you say that. I feel calmed. You seem so welcoming. So I'm relaxed. So I want to say thank you for your time, your
Welcome.
patience, your effort, your knowledge, everything. It was a sincere pleasure having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here. I'm glad that anytime I get to shine a light on mental health, even if it's, for me, even if it's a podcast watched by one person or a video watched by hundreds, I'm never going to stop talking about this. because it matters to me. I know it matters to others. So I'm glad that you're continuing to feature stories and professionals just like myself who can contribute to these conversations.
100%. It has to, because I think a lot of people don't realize that they're dealing with it. A lot of people are in denial, and I think if they hear you guys talk more and hear other stories, I think it's more like them realizing, okay, I can relate to that. You know what? Maybe I need to go check my mental health, and that's the way I felt at the same time a few times. So with that said, yeah, again, thank you. And thank you for joining us today on our weekly episode of Health Your Way podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share with others, and please feel free to comment below and ask any questions on topics we discussed, as well as future topics you'd like to hear about. Have a happy and healthy week, and be sure to tune in next week for the next episode on a Health Your Way podcast.